Well, I have some mixed emotions about this one because if you'd have offered me a 2-2 draw this morning, I probably would have taken it. Because if we look at the state of play as it is now, we're still 6 points ahead of Spurs with 2 games in hand. We're still 6 points ahead of Villa with 2 games in hand and we're playing them at the weekend. And we're still 7 points in front of Liverpool with 1 game in hand on them. So, in terms of the prospect of the top 4, it's not a complete and total disaster that we've drawn 2-2 away at Spurs. Let's not forget that that's the first time we've not lost a game against a top half team this season. So, in that regard, it's still an okay result. But the manner in which we have thrown away the 2-goal lead in yet another horrendous second half performance needs some serious looking into. And unfortunately today the blame is falling solely on Erik ten Hag because this is happening repeatedly. And I don't like to bring up previous failures over managers at other clubs, but this is a manager that has got history of throwing away leads in second half performances and sides putting in second half performances not befitting of the first half performance. And there's no side that knows that any better than Tottenham Hotspur when you talk about that Champions League comeback all those years ago when Erik ten Hag was in charge of Ajax. And it's a real concern because whatever happens in the first half, I don't know what he says to them at half time, but they come out for the second half with absolutely no desire to run and pass and play the way they did in the first half. And it happened again today. The only time you can say we've had a good second half performance in the last 3 or 4 months, basically since the World Cup, you would say is probably that Manchester City game. But let's not forget that in that Manchester City game, at the start of the second half, we played absolutely awful and went 1-0 down. We then bucked our ideas up and managed to pull it back and win 2-1, albeit a little bit luckily, but these second half performances are absolutely disgraceful and he needs to take some responsibility for it because whatever he is saying to them in that dressing room is allowing them to just relax too much. And then beyond that, the substitutions he made today were absolutely horrendous. And I cannot stress enough that I genuinely think every single substitution that Erik ten Hag made in this game made the side worse. And obviously the big one for everyone is the decision to put Fred on for Eriksen. Even though we'd just conceded a goal, we were controlling the game still. We were controlling the midfield, and that was the important thing. They scored a very scrappy goal after one very good set of build-up play, and there's a bit of contention around potentially Richarlison being in an offside position, preventing De Gea from... He wouldn't have saved it anyway. It's De Gea. It was on his left-hand side. He didn't even try and save it. The only reason he tried to appeal for Richarlison was because when he turned round and saw the ball was in the net, he saw Richarlison was laying next to it. He wouldn't have got there. It was a perfectly fine goal as far as I'm concerned. But then the substitutions were made. As I said, we were controlling the midfield. So what you do in that situation is you take a ball-playing midfielder off and put another ball-playing midfielder on. And Marcel Sabitzer must have been sitting on the bench thinking, why has he picked Fred? Because what was Fred's job? He wasn't picking up Harry Kane. He wasn't picking up one of the midfielders. He was just asked to run around like a headless chicken and then try and play passes. Well, if that's the job you've told him to do, why have you not put on someone who specialises in doing exactly that in Marcel Sabitzer? Absolutely horrendous decision to put Fred on instead of Sabitzer. And obviously the second goal comes from us giving the ball away in that midfield area once again, breaking through on goal, and it's a very scruffy finish from Heung-min Son to make it 2-2. But it had been coming. It wasn't a matter of if Tottenham are going to make it 2-2. It was a matter of when Tottenham are going to make it 2-2 and if they could get a third if they did. The other substitutions, taking off Sancho, who had his best performance in the Manchester United shirt for ages, and I'll touch on that. I'm going to talk about the negatives then the positives today. The decision to take Sancho off for Martial did not work. Martial offered nothing up front. Everything good that Sancho was doing in the first half, getting on the ball, causing problems for Romero, playing quick passes. Every time Rashford got the ball, he just stood there and did nothing. He either passed it back or passed it inside. And on the odd occasion he managed to get inside with the ball, he just shot. I don't know what Rashford's doing. It's like he's turned into another Anthony. And I don't get it. In all the periods since the World Cup, Rashford has been getting on the ball, driving at players, creating opportunities for others, and then taking chances when he's come. Since he's come back from his little injury break, it's like all he cares about is scoring goals. It's like he's taken a step back, look at the numbers he's been generating, and gone, blooming hell, if I keep getting chances, I'm going to break all the records here. And he's lost his team play in the search of selfish goals, in my opinion, Rashford. And like I said, it's very reminiscent of what Antony does on the other side, which is a bit of a concern when you've got both of your wingers just cutting inside and shooting and completely ignoring Bruno Fernandes, who was arguably the best player in the first half and basically not involved in the second half because the wingers weren't passing to him. Fred couldn't get the ball to him, and it just all fell apart in the midfield. I just don't understand it. Then, the decision to take Aaron Wan-Bissaka off, who had kept Perisic and Richarlison quiet in the first half, and had started struggling, don't get me wrong, because Antony had got tired and Perisic was getting forward more, but had kept Heung-min Son quiet and Perisic relatively quiet in that second half. The decision to take him off is absolutely ludicrous. And lo and behold, when that second goal comes, Heung-min Son's running in behind and Diogo Dalot's nowhere to be seen. If Wan-Bissaka was still on the pitch, that goal doesn't happen. I'm utterly convinced of that. I just did not understand those decision making. And then again, the decision to take Antony off and put Weghorst on, put him behind Martial, put Bruno out wide. You couldn't get Bruno involved in the middle, so let's try him out wide, I guess. Baffling. Did not understand it. Every single substitution he made today made the team worse. And like I said, it falls on Ten Hag today because his decision making and his control over the players in the dressing room at half time and his management of the second half has cost us 2 points today and put our top 4 chances in some slight more doubt. Not massive doubt. Like I say, if we beat Aston Villa at the weekend, if we can get a result against Brighton in midweek next week, I think we'll be all right. But it throws serious doubt over our credentials because in the last few weeks, we've been embarrassed by Sevilla. We've drawn 0-0 with Brighton without threatening too much going forward. And yet again, after a fantastic first half performance, we've thrown it away once again. And it just puts that element of doubt in the players' minds, in the fans' minds. You know Aston Villa are going to give it everything they've got. They're playing fantastic football at the moment, Aston Villa. And there's going to be that worry that if we're not on it, if we've not built up a good enough lead by half-time, or even worse, if we're not winning at half-time, when Villa come out for that second half, are they going to absolutely ravage us and put us in a real dire position and really jeopardise our top 4 hopes? That is the real concern because we're just throwing points away and we're throwing good positions away unnecessarily at the moment. And I don't really understand why we can't put a second half performance together like we can in the first half. And I will spend the last couple of minutes talking about the first half because it does warrant talking about. First half, I thought we played fantastic. Yes, we took a slight gamble playing a higher line today with Shaw and Lindelof as the back 2, and there were some chances for Spurs in behind, but we handled them pretty well. Like I said, Wan-Bissaka was exceptional. Lindelof, I thought, was breaking up the play fantastically. Luke Shaw was absolutely unreal. He is so good at this left centre-back job. He struggled again a lot more in the second half, but like I said, he lost a lot of his protection when we started moving around the midfield. It was sort of his job to pick up Harry Kane, and he wasn't sure whether to come or go, and at times it looked a little bit dodgy in that second half. But first half, he was absolutely fantastic, and as I said in my video the other day, Gareth Southgate needs to be looking at Luke Shaw at playing left centre-back for England because I think he's that good at doing the job. Into the midfield, as we spoke about, absolute complete control. Bruno, Eriksen, Casemiro running the show in that first half. They were everywhere. The passing, the movement, the link-up, everything you want from a midfield 3. They were fantastic. Rashford was making runs in behind. He was causing problems, something that Martial wasn't doing in the second half. And, you know, Antony was causing a threat on one side. Didn't really happen for Antony today. He still looked dangerous at times. But I was so impressed with Jadon Sancho in that first half. And it was all because of the things I've been criticising him for in the last couple of weeks. He was much sharper on the ball. His decision-making was much quicker. Every time he got it, it was one touch to set himself, one touch to have a look around, and then he was playing passes or playing shots. Everything you expect from Jadon Sancho. And his goal typified that. One touch to square up the defender, one touch to take it past the defender, one touch to shoot it in the far corner. In the last few weeks, it's been touch, 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 touch. Shall I pass? Shall I shoot? Another touch, and then he either shot into a player in front of him or just gave the ball away. Today he was sharp, he was responsive, he was pulling players all over the place, linking up with Fernandes and Rashford brilliantly, bringing Dalot in on the overlap at times, feeding off of Eriksen in the slightly deeper role as well. So, again, the decision to take him off really surprised me, and it nullified our threat. Putting Martial up front and putting Rashford on the left completely nullified all the threat that Rashford and Sancho were posing in that first half. Made no sense to make that substitution, and ultimately, like I said, that's cost us the game today. The only other thing I should say is Lindelof should have been sent off. I really do believe that. We were very lucky not to get Lindelof sent off. He committed a foul for his first yellow card, which I thought was a bit soft. I thought the first yellow card was a little bit soft, but that challenge, I can't even remember who it was on now. It was probably Kane, the amount of times he was dropping in and making those turns, but he wrestled him to the ground, he kicked him, all sorts. It's a yellow card. There's no getting away from it. It's a yellow card. And he should have been given a second yellow card and sent off. And thank goodness he didn't, because if he would have been sent off, we definitely would have lost this game. And I think Anthony Taylor had a poor performance once again for both teams. He's really gone off the boil as a referee in the last few months. He's been our top referee going to World Cups, and he's our Champions League referee this season, but every time he's refereed a Manchester United game recently, he's been horrendous. And like I said, it's for both teams. There were challenges in the first half where we should have had free kicks on the edge of the box, a challenge on Antony, a challenge on Rashford, not given. Like I say, Lindelof should have been sent off. There were a couple of challenges for Spurs that weren't given. There was a clear push on Richarlison before Tottenham scored. I don't know if he would have given that if it had been the other way. Just a really, really poor performance from Anthony Taylor, and it contributed to making the game very scrappy at times because it was a little bit out of control. Players weren't sure what decisions were going to be given when, and yeah, look, at the end of the day, like I said, I'd have taken a draw at kickoff. I would have been and am very frustrated that we've ended this game in a draw given the fact we were 2-0 up at half-time. But it is still very much in our own hands. We have the opportunity to take out one of our rivals in Aston Villa this weekend. And then we have the opportunity to, I would think, secure Champions League football by getting a result against a kind of broken Brighton team after the week that they've had. We'll see how Brighton do at the weekend and make our judgment before that game after the Aston Villa game. But Brighton look to be a little bit on the ropes at the moment off the back of their FA Cup loss and then the loss to Nottingham Forest. But we shall see. It's still very much in our hands. I still have to believe that we are more than capable of pulling off the results we need to get Champions League football for this season. But whatever happens, these second half performances need to improve, and they need to improve tonight. Something needs to be said to these players that says we do not switch off at the start of second halves, and we play to our absolute maximum from the first whistle of that second half until 60 minutes. Because that's when it happens. It's those first 15 minutes after the second half begins that we switch off, we lose all of our focus, and we give teams the momentum to get back, the opportunity to build momentum to get back into these football matches. And that's what needs to stop. And it needs to be evident on Sunday against Aston Villa. So, as always, let me know your thoughts about the game. Let me know your thoughts about the prospects for the rest of the season. And let me know your thoughts about whether or not we're going to get the job done against Aston Villa this weekend. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow morning with the next round of Premier League predictions.